Welcome to the channel. I'm a doctor, and today I'll talk about 9 medical myths about cholesterol. Your doctor still believes. 2026 update. The medical community in 2026 is witnessing a paradigm shift in how we understand lipids and their role in human health, yet many practicing physicians continue to rely on cardiovascular models established in the 1970s and 1980s. For the senior over 60, this clinical lag is not just a matter of academic debate. It is a direct threat to cognitive health, hormonal balance, and overall vitality. We have been conditioned to view cholesterol as a monolithic villain, a waxy sludge that exists solely to clog arteries. However, the emerging science of the mid-2020s reveals that cholesterol is one of the most vital molecules in the human body, serving as the raw material for every sex hormone, the structural integrity of every cell membrane, and the primary insulation for the brain's neural pathways. To navigate the later decades of life with clarity and strength, we must dismantle the 9 medical myths that even well-meaning doctors still cling to. The first myth that persists in 2026 is the idea that total cholesterol is a reliable predictor of heart disease risk. For decades, a number over 200 has sent doctors reaching for the prescription pad. In reality, total cholesterol is a largely meaningless metric because it combines HDL, LDL, and various subparticles into a single figure. In the senior population, higher total cholesterol has actually been associated with lower all-cause mortality and a reduced risk of infectious disease. This is because cholesterol plays a central role in the immune system, neutralizing bacterial toxins and supporting the production of vitamin D. By focusing on a single total number, physicians often overlook the more important indicators of health, such as insulin sensitivity and systemic inflammation. The second myth involves the classification of LDL as bad cholesterol. We now know that LDL is not a single entity, but a diverse group of lipoproteins with vastly different biological impacts. Standard blood tests do not distinguish between the large, buoyant pattern A particles, which are essentially harmless, and the small, dense pattern B particles that are prone to oxidation and arterial damage. A senior might have a high LDL count, but if those particles are large and fluffy, they are simply performing their job of transporting nutrients to cells. Conversely, a person with a low LDL count composed of small, dense particles is at high risk. By failing to order advanced lipid panels that measure particle size and count, many doctors are treating a number rather than a physiological reality. The third myth is the belief that dietary cholesterol significantly raises blood cholesterol levels. This is one of the most enduring fallacies in nutritional science. The body has a sophisticated feedback loop. When you eat more cholesterol from eggs or shellfish, the liver simply produces less. For most seniors, the restriction of nutrient-dense foods like whole eggs leads to deficiencies in choline and lutein, which are essential for brain and eye health. In 2026, we understand that the real drivers of high blood cholesterol are not healthy fats, but refined carbohydrates and seed oils that trigger inflammatory responses in the liver. Fourthly, the myth that low cholesterol is always better is particularly dangerous for those over 60. The brain contains about 25% of the body's total cholesterol, despite making up only 2% of its weight. Cholesterol is required to form synapses, the connections between neurons. When we aggressively suppress cholesterol to ultra-low levels, we often see a decline in cognitive function, memory loss, and even an increased risk of hemorrhagic stroke. The medical obsession with driving numbers into the basement ignores the biological necessity of fats for neurological integrity. The fifth myth is the idea that statins are a primary prevention miracle for everyone over 65. While statins can be life-saving for those with established heart disease, their benefit as a primary prevention tool for healthy seniors is increasingly questioned. The absolute risk reduction provided by these drugs is often less than 1%. While the risk of side effects like muscle wasting, diabetes, and cataracts is significantly higher in the geriatric population. Many doctors continue to prescribe them based on relative risk statistics, which mask the minimal benefit for the average healthy retiree. The sixth myth suggests that HDL is always good regardless of the context. We have learned that HDL can become dysfunctional in an inflammatory environment. Simply having a high HDL number does not guarantee protection if those particles have been damaged by oxidative stress or high blood sugar. In some cases, very high HDL can actually be a sign of poor clearance, meaning the particles are circulating but not effectively removing excess lipids. The focus should be on HDL functionality rather than just the quantity on the lab report. The seventh myth is that saturated fat is the primary cause of heart disease. Large-scale meta-analyses in the 2020s have failed to find a consistent link between naturally occurring saturated fats and cardiovascular events. In fact, for many seniors, healthy saturated fats from grass-fed beef or coconut oil provide stable energy and support the production of essential hormones that prevent frailty. The real culprits are the industrial trans fats and highly processed oils that have replaced traditional fats in the modern diet. The eighth myth involves the neglect of triglycerides as a primary risk factor. Many doctors see a high triglyceride count and view it as a secondary concern compared to LDL. In reality, elevated triglycerides are a direct reflection of metabolic dysfunction and insulin resistance. They are often a far more accurate predictor of future cardiovascular issues in seniors than LDL ever could be. Triglycerides represent the amount of fat circulating in the blood for energy, and when they are high, it indicates that the body is failing to process fuel efficiently. The ninth myth is the belief that cholesterol management is a one-size-fits-all endeavor. The aging body has unique requirements that differ from a 30-year-old. As we age, our need for hormonal support and brain protection increases, making cholesterol more valuable than it was in our youth. A doctor who applies the same target numbers to a 70-year-old as they do to a middle-aged executive is ignoring the wisdom of the aging system. To correct these myths, we must embrace the science of 2026, which prioritizes particle quality, metabolic health, and the preservation of the brain. We must look beyond the waxy molecule and address the underlying inflammation and sugar toxicity that actually damage the arteries. For the senior who wants to remain sharp and vital, the message is clear. Do not fear your cholesterol. Understand its role as a vital ally and work with a practitioner who looks at the whole person rather than just a chart of outdated targets. The resilience of the human body depends on a clean and well-supplied internal environment. When we stop the war on cholesterol, we open the door to better hormonal health and a more robust immune system. Reclaim your vitality by insisting on advanced testing and a nuanced understanding of your lipid profile. Your brain, your heart, and your future self will thank you for the courage to look past the myths and see the biological truth. Furthermore, we must address the role of lipoprotein A, often called the silent killer. This is a genetically determined particle that many standard tests ignore. If you have a high level of this specific particle, your risk is elevated regardless of your other numbers. By focusing on total cholesterol, doctors often miss the very thing that is actually causing the risk. In 2026, the inclusion of this test in a standard physical for those over 60 is becoming a mandatory step in responsible geriatric care. We should also consider the impact of stress on cholesterol production. The liver produces more cholesterol when the body is under chronic stress because it needs the raw material to make cortisol. A senior who is constantly worried about their numbers might actually be driving them higher through the very stress of the obsession. The path to health is not through fear, but through the calm implementation of a nutrient-dense diet and joyful movement. The psychological impact of the cholesterol panic also deserves a modern reassessment. For generations, seniors have lived in a state of dietary fear, viewing every steak or egg as a ticking time bomb. This chronic anxiety triggers the sympathetic nervous system, raising heart rate and blood pressure, which does far more damage to the arteries than the fats themselves. When we embrace the biological truth that natural fats are supportive of human health, we remove a massive psychological burden. A joyful meal shared with loved ones, rich in natural fats and free from the guilt of outdated dogmas, is a powerful health intervention in its own right. The medical community is also finally recognizing the importance of the triglyceride to HDL ratio as a primary marker of cardiovascular health. While your doctor might still be focused on the LDL number, the ratio between your triglycerides and your good HDL cholesterol tells a much more accurate story about your insulin sensitivity and your risk for developing metabolic syndrome. A ratio under 2.00 is generally considered a sign of excellent metabolic health, regardless of what the total cholesterol number might be. This shift toward ratios and patterns rather than isolated numbers allows for a much more nuanced and accurate assessment of a senior's true risk profile. It moves us away from the one-size-fits-all prescription model and toward a personalized strategy that respects the complexity of the human metabolism. The integration of these truths into your daily routine means choosing foods that are rich in natural fats, like avocados, olive oil, and pasture-raised eggs. It means avoiding the processed sugars that actually cause the inflammation that cholesterol is trying to repair. It means staying hydrated to support the health of your glycocalyx and staying active to keep your metabolic machinery running smoothly. These simple, natural acts are far more powerful than any drug in the quest for true longevity. As we look toward the horizon, the promise of geriatric medicine is one of liberation. We are freeing ourselves from the fear of fats and the tyranny of the statin prescription. We are embracing a world where being 60 or 70 means being at the peak of our wisdom and our physical capabilities. This future is possible because we have finally had the courage to look at the data and see the truth. Your heart is strong, your brain is precious, and your cholesterol is the key to protecting both. To truly meet the needs of the senior community, we must expand our understanding of how cholesterol affects the aging brain. The brain is not just a passive receiver of blood. It is an active metabolic furnace that requires constant fuel and structural upkeep. As we age, the permeability of the blood-brain barrier can change, making the internal cholesterol environment of the brain even more precious. Many of the cognitive declines seen in the elderly that are often diagnosed as general aging are actually the result of low lipid availability in the neural tissues. By maintaining adequate cholesterol levels, we provide the brain with the insulation it needs to conduct electrical signals efficiently, keeping our memory sharp and our motor skills intact. Moreover, the relationship between cholesterol and vitamin D synthesis is a cornerstone of skeletal health for those over 60. Vitamin D is actually a hormone, and it is synthesized from cholesterol in the skin upon exposure to sunlight. When we use drugs to aggressively push cholesterol levels down, we often see a corresponding drop in vitamin D levels, which leads to bone thinning and muscle weakness. This creates a cycle of frailty that can be devastating for a senior. The 2026 approach recognizes that a slightly higher cholesterol level may be a biological necessity to ensure adequate vitamin D production, especially in climates where sun exposure is limited. We must also address the concept of reverse causation in cholesterol studies. Many older studies suggested that low cholesterol was linked to poor health, and for a long time, researchers argued that people had low cholesterol because they were already sick. However, modern analysis shows that the low cholesterol itself is often the driver of the decline, particularly because it impairs the immune system's ability to respond to stressors. For a senior, having a robust cholesterol level is like having a well-stocked pantry during a storm. It provides the resources needed to weather illnesses that would otherwise be life-threatening. Another critical layer to this 2026 update is the emerging understanding of the role cholesterol plays in cellular autophagy and waste removal. As we age, our cells naturally accumulate metabolic debris, a process that can lead to systemic inflammation and organ decline. We now know that cholesterol is a vital component of the lysosomal membranes responsible for breaking down the cellular trash. When seniors are pushed toward excessively low cholesterol levels through aggressive medication or extreme fat restriction, their cellular cleaning systems become sluggish. This accumulation of metabolic waste is a primary driver of the very arterial damage we are trying to prevent. By maintaining healthy, natural lipid levels, we ensure that our bodies retain the capacity to renew themselves at a microscopic level, proving that cholesterol is not just a building block, but an essential part of the body's self-cleaning mechanism. We must also confront the significant but often ignored relationship between cholesterol and the health of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the superhighway of the parasympathetic nervous system, controlling everything from digestion to heart rate variability. Like all nerves, the vagus nerve relies on a thick coating of myelin for its electrical signaling. This myelin is composed largely of cholesterol. In the senior years, maintaining vagal tone is the difference between a resilient, calm heart and one that is prone to arrhythmias and stress-induced failure. When we starve the body of fats, we effectively thin the insulation of our most important neural regulator. A 2026 approach to cardiovascular health prioritizes the protection of this neural insulation, recognizing that a well-coated vagus nerve is a more powerful protector against heart attacks than a low LDL number will ever be. Furthermore, we need to address the inflammation paradox that many doctors still struggle to explain. Patients are often told that high cholesterol causes inflammation, but the biochemical reality is usually the reverse. Inflammation causes the body to mobilize cholesterol. Think of the vascular system as a road that has developed cracks due to the heat of high blood sugar and oxidative stress. The liver sends out cholesterol as a sort of biological spackle to smooth over these cracks and prevent a total rupture. If a doctor only sees the spackle and tries to remove it without cooling the heat, the road eventually crumbles. In 2026, the gold standard of care involves using advanced markers like glyc-A and myeloperoxidase to measure the actual fire in the vessels, rather than blaming the liquid lipids that are trying to put it out. The role of cholesterol in the skin also takes on new meaning as we age. Skin is the body's primary barrier against the outside world, and its integrity is maintained by a complex layer of lipids, including cholesterol. Seniors who suffer from chronic dry skin, slow wound healing, and easy bruising are often the victims of lipid-lowering strategies that have stripped their skin of its natural protective oils. This is not merely a cosmetic issue. Compromised skin is an entry point for infections that can quickly become systemic in an older adult. By embracing a fat-rich diet, we provide the body with the precursors needed to keep the skin supple and strong, maintaining the first line of defense in our immune system. We must look at the socioeconomic and cultural impact of the long-standing war on cholesterol. To truly navigate the later decades with vitality, we must view our lipid profile as a dynamic reflection of our internal state, not a static score to be beaten down. Your cholesterol is a testament to your body's incredible ability to repair, protect, and energize itself. When we provide our systems with high-quality fats and move away from the toxic influences of refined carbohydrates, we allow the body to reach its natural equilibrium. This update is about more than just science. It is about reclaiming the right to age with dignity, strength, and a clear, well-fueled mind. Your future health is built on the fats you eat today. Trust the process, ignore the outdated dogmas, and live your life to the fullest. In the final analysis, the health of your heart is determined by the quality of your life and the nutrients you provide to your cells. By rejecting the 9 myths and embracing a personalized, fat-inclusive approach to health, you are choosing a future of independence. You are choosing to protect your brain, balance your hormones, and support your heart with the very molecules it was designed to use. Be the advocate for your own health and live with the clarity and power that come from the truth. In conclusion, the 9 myths of cholesterol are a vestige of a simpler time in medicine. As we move into the future, we have the tools and the knowledge to treat the heart with the complexity it deserves. By moving away from the villainization of fats and toward the support of metabolic health, we can ensure that our later decades are lived with strength and clarity. The most dangerous myth is that we are helpless against our numbers. In reality, you are the architect of your own health, and the truth about cholesterol is the foundation of your thriving. Reclaim your vitality and enjoy the long, healthy life you were meant to live. Reclaim your health today.